What's going on, everyone? This is Graham, and today we are going to take a look at the Canon 50-1.8 STM. This update to Canon's 50-1.8 plastic predecessor is a much needed improvement with regards to design and durability as well as autofocus, but how does the image quality stack up? Next up, we're going to take a look at image quality from samples that I took out on a couple hikes, and then we're going to take a look at how this lens performs on an infrared modified 5D and even how it competes against its plastic predecessor and the previous FD and FL generations of Canon's 50-1.8 line. Click the link below this video to download the image files. Let's get started. When not at the extreme ends of the f range, this lens performs just about the same as its predecessor with regards to center performance sharpness, but when there's autofocus involved, such as in this image there was, this lens performs better because it has a more consistent and a faster lock when it comes to sharpness. And take a look at this up here in the far upper right hand corner. I've zoomed in about 300x, and as you can see, there's very little chromatic aberration, so this lens performs very well when it comes to chromatic aberration. And having used the previous 50-1.8 for quite a while, I'd say this one performs heads and shoulders above that one with regards to CA. Okay, let's jump into a wide open image. Here we got an image shot at f1.8 on a Sony a7R. As you can see, details are a bit soft wide open. However, the out of focus blurred background looks great. So this is a great performer when it comes to wide open shots, but you're not going to get those critically sharp details that you might on another lens, but you probably already knew that. Now let's take a look at the optical performance when shooting in direct light. As you can see here, we have two lens flares. However, these are incredibly well controlled and pretty impressive. So this lens is a very good performer with regards to flaring and ghosting. And the details here when we zoom into this boat look great. So really sharp. And again, this is handheld, no tripod or anything like that. So given the fact that we're dealing with, a direct light source here, this lens is a pretty good performer for a general purpose lens, walking around, great colors, great sharpness. As with Canon's new 42.8 pancake lens, Canon is on a trend of replacing the focusing rings with electronic focusing rings, which is what you find here on this lens. Check out what the autofocus motor sounds like here on each lens. The autofocus switch here on the new 50-1.8 is an upgrade from the previous one, which is nice. I really love the new finish here on the new 50-1.8. It's unlike the finishes I've seen on the other Canon lenses, so I hope they follow this trend going forward. Canon is no longer cutting corners here on the lens mount. They've made it metal, and they've gotten rid of the plastic one that you find on the old 50-1.8. And just for curiosity's sake, I thought I would throw this lens along with my FD and FL 50-1.8s on my A7R to see what the optical resolution would look like when comparing against each other. So let's take a look. Okay, let's jump in here to the Canon 50-1.8s, all four of them here, and I'm not sure which lens is which here, so we're going to go ahead and zoom in to 100% on this green buoy because that was the manual focus point for all of these lenses, and I'm going to go ahead and line them up here. And let's take a look at this with regards to sharpness. I'd say the lower left looks like the sharpest, so number 1, top left number 2, bottom right number 3, and the top right is pretty much trash. So going out to the edge of the frame, let's see what the performance looks like. All right, so top right here, well, even more trash, but it looks like the top left is a better performer with regards to edge sharpness, but the bottom two are usable. So they're pretty good, but not quite as good as the top left. So in short, the center sharpness or the focus point sharpness is better on the bottom left one, but the top left one is better on the side or the edge frame sharpness. So let's go ahead and reveal here which is which. So it looks like the Canon FD, wide open at f1.8, beats out the FL, the newest STM, and definitely the all-plastic EF. Okay, so here I have all four images up, and I don't know which is which. What I'm going to do is zoom in here at 100% and align these images properly so I see them all at the same distance from each other here. Perfect. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to find the ones that I see as sharpest on my screen. Again, you're going to have to download these on your computer to do the same test yourself on your display. But in looking at these 4 images, I would say this top right one here is definitely the sharpest, with this one in the top left trailing as the second sharpness, and then lower right as the third sharpness, and the lower left, well, that one looks pretty darn horrible. That one is the least sharp. So I'm going to go ahead and display the images here. It looks like the Canon FD performs much sharper than even the STM and definitely the all-plastic one at f4. Okay, now let's take a look at f16 with these 4 lenses compared. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in at 100%. And align them all up properly. All right, now this one is a little bit trickier. At least on my screen, it's very difficult to tell any discernible difference with regards to sharpness. There's a slight difference in exposure, but we'll ignore that for the sake of looking at just sharpness here. And if I had to just, pick out a winner, I would probably... You know what? It's really hard, but it's probably the lower left or the lower right, which we already know here is either the plastic EF or the STM. It's pretty close, though. I mean, you're going to have to take a look at these on your computer and download them to see. But when it gets up into the f16 range, it's very difficult to discern any major difference in sharpness between the 4 lenses. Okay, now jumping here to another 4 up here, vertical this time. Let's go ahead and take a look and see which is the better performer, again at f16. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here at 100%, and I'm going to align these all together more or less to be looking at the same thing. All right, that looks good. Let me just align these up real quick. Okay, so with regards to sharpness, well, right off the bat, we can tell this far right one is not that sharp, and this one here is not as sharp. These two are definitely about as sharp as each other. I'd say this far left one, especially here in this area, is a bit sharper. So I'd say this is number 1, the third one is number 2, and then this one's probably number 3, and then the far right one is number 4. So let's go ahead and reveal here, see what they are. All right, so Canon FL, interestingly enough, seems to be the sharpest on my screen. Now, interesting of note here, though, is that the f16 is the highest f number for the FL 51.8. It doesn't go up to 22 like the others, so given that this one performs the sharpest, it's pretty curious. I'm not exactly sure how to explain that, but there you go. And then the STM looks like it's second, FD trailing in third, and the EF, well, that one seems to be failing on all of these tests. Okay, now let's take a look at f22 performance on the 3 lenses. I'm excluding the Canon FL because it doesn't go up to 22, it only goes up to 16. So taking a look here at 100% on all 3 of these lenses, looks like in the very center, I would say the 2 left ones are about the same. The right one, without exposure coming into play here, I'd say it's not quite as sharp, but it's still pretty good, just not as good as the 2 left ones. I'm going to go up here to the far left of the frame, and again, here we have a more extreme difference in sharpness. Here on the far right, this one is not that good in terms of performance on sharpness on the edge of the frame. The 2 here on the left, they look indistinguishable on my screen. I'd probably flip a coin on which one is sharpest. So let's go ahead and reveal them here. So the EF on the far left, the STM in the center perform about the same at f22 on this particular image, and the FD doesn't quite perform as well, especially on the corners out at f22. So just to summarize here, the new Canon 51.8 STM outperforms its predecessor with regards to center and edge frame sharpness on all of the images that I tested. Now, just as a side note, the Canon FD and FL 51.8s did outperform these 2 lenses in some of my test images, which kind of surprised me considering that I paid, like $20 for one of them, and they've been banging around for 50 years. And to figure out what the infrared performance was like, I put this lens on my modified IR 5D to check it out, and the center performance is pretty good. On some of my other Canon lenses, I see an area in the center where there's greater exposure, like a cone in the very center of each image. And this lens doesn't produce one at all from my experience here. As you can see, the center is very well exposed, evenly exposed, just like the rest of the image. So this lens is a very good performer when it comes to infrared. And I haven't modified these images at all, so they're just straight out of camera. But I like to see that center area not having a greater exposure. And again, this is another good test image for center exposure performance on for infrared. And again, this is great. The only downside here, of course, is that this lens doesn't have a focus window, which Canon places an infrared focus mark, the little red mark on a lot of its lenses. So you don't have that here on this one, of course, but that's okay. The autofocus is pretty accurate even on this modified 5D, and the performance looks pretty decent. If I had to make a recommendation between this lens and its predecessor, let's just say the cost of its predecessor was halved now that this has come out, I would still recommend this one, simply because the design and durability is just that much better, and Canon simply isn't cutting as many corners as they used to, and this one's probably going to last you a bit longer as a result. I also wanted to share with you some thoughts from a great review I just read over at thedigitalpicture.com by Brian. Brian says, it's easy to love a lens with great optical quality, excellent autofocus, and first-class build quality. Start dropping any of those attributes in size, weight, and price, concessions are expected, but the Canon 50 1.8 STM is the lowest cost and nearly the smallest and lightest Canon lens, only trailing the Canon 40 2.8 Pancake in both size and weight. Brian rounds out his excellent review by saying, with impressive stopped-down performance and excellent durability, it's no surprise that Canon's 50 1.8 STM immediately launched to the pinnacle of Canon's bestseller list. But before you make a decision, go to Google right now and search Canon 40mm 2.8 review. Click on Brian's excellent review of the 42.8 and check that out as well, because to my mind, that may be a better lens for you if you're doing travel and landscape photography. It's just a really good alternative to this lens, so make sure to check that out before you make a decision. Well, that's all I got for you here for this review. If you have any questions, make sure to leave a comment below, and also click the link directly below this video to check out the image gallery and the written review portion of this video review, where you can find about 9 GB of images. Go download them. You don't have to enter your email or anything weird like that. And last but not least, this video review is brought to you ad-free by Breakthrough Photography, the makers of the world's sharpest and most color-neutral ND filter, the X3 ND. Well, that's all I got for you guys. Thanks so much for watching, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. See you next time.